It's very exciting to talk DeFi for me. I will let everyone introduce themselves, but I'll start introducing myself not as ETHMilan co-founder, but also as Davide from LFJ protocol, formerly known as Trader Joe, and I am a DeFi builder. We run a decentralized exchange available on a few blockchains, specifically Avalanche and Arbitrum and Mantle. And what we do as a business is to offer decentralized markets directly on the chain that we support. And it's my great pleasure to talk today with actual people that I have spoke to for a long time. We actually met multiple times around the world and here in Milan. So I'm very happy to let this all start. It is going to be hopefully extremely interesting for you because we want to discuss topics that are not extremely common, and definitely we want to explore these topics as true builder in the on-chain decentralized finance in a way that you don't hear very often. So I'll let you start.
Testing.
Okay. Hello everyone, I'm Filippo Moraschi. I'm the community manager and strategist at Fox Finance. But first of all, I want to thank David and the whole team of ETHMilan because it's great to have such an event here in my hometown. And well, Fox Finance is a cross-chain decentralized protocol that offers a wide range of decentralized tools. We can offer lending, cross-chain lending, cross-chain liquid staking, cross-chain swaps. Soon we will be able also to offer cross-chain loans using a debit card. So we are a complete DeFi hub.
Filippo, when you say you are actually here in Milan, can you tell a bit more about where are your colleagues from? And
so we are a decentralized company, so we are spread all over the world, but we are 80% from Milan. And yeah, with Milan I also mean like there are people from the Como Lake, the Garda Lake, our CTO is in London. We have also team members from Asia. We have two members of the marketing team in the US. So yeah, we are a decentralized company, but yeah, I will say 70%, 80% of the team members comes from Italy and Milan in the specific.
Thanks.
I will switch the microphone.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrei. I'm the head of DeFi for Li.Fi. Li.Fi is you can think of it as a cross-border railway system. And I know that sounds complicated, but I'm trying to make an analogy here to simplify things. So think of a railway system in which you want to start from point A and get to point B within the same country or cross-border to another country. Well, think of that as same-chain swaps or cross-chain swaps. We're aggregating all the railway systems into one API, SDK, and widget, which is open source, readily available for all our partners. At core, we are a B2B company, so we're powering swaps in all the big DeFi dApps. So if you ever done a swap or a bridge in DeFi, it is very likely that you've interacted with Li.Fi under the hood. So for example, we're powering the bridge function in MetaMask, in Phantom Wallet. We're working with the guys from Fox Finance. Robinhood is also using us for same-chain swaps. So it's always a combination of cross-chain, same-chain, or any-to-any swaps. Yeah, I mean, it's a company 4 years old. We've raised so far 32 million. And our end goal is to unify multi-chain in in a cross-chain world, basically. So, I know that we will get to that point of, cross-chain versus multi-chain, but at the end of the day, you can get from point A to point B or from chain A to chain B in a very seamless way.
My name is Lukasz. I'm head of business development at Mimic Finance. At Mimic, we're building DeFi infrastructure with main focus on automation. So we're allowing our customers, we're also a B2B project, we're allowing our customers to automate various activities in the DeFi space, mainly swaps, bridging, entering and exiting different positions, and they can do it based on the predefined conditions that they can set up. Currently, we're working on a little bit expanding our infrastructure. We're building cross-chain intents, and we're building a way to automate cross-chain intents. So basically, users will not need to specify, the how, just the what, as with the intents it is, and they'll be able to basically specify what they want to automate in terms of DeFi activity, and it will get executed by various solvers. Yeah, that's about me.
So we would like to start by exploring some topics that are quite common in this space and that are quite one of the biggest, I believe, struggle that DeFi users see, that is fragmentation, not only of liquidity, but overall of the various chains and how users need today to handle so many new places where to try to make transactions and make a lot of hoops between the various operations that they do in their DeFi journey. What is the status of the multi-chain landscape today, and where are we getting to try to simplify the space?
I can take this one. So I like this topic because I personally think that the current user experience in DeFi, especially in layer 2, is terrible. Many of you can disagree, but it's very difficult to onboard new users in the actual space. And for this, at Fox Finance, we are building a cross-chain protocol that will unify all the liquidity among all the chains, and will also be the DeFi shop for every kind of operation. As David has said, there are two main problems in the current DeFi space. The first one is the tool fragmentation. The second one is the liquidity fragmentation. Just to give a few examples, the way our protocol works is that the architecture is called hub and spoke. So basically, there's like an hub chain. In our case, is Avalanche. That is the business logic of the protocol and works also as a liquidity hub. And around that, there are many chains called spoke chains where people can perform deposit and borrowing operation. And everything is handled by the messaging layers. So we are working with Circle CCTP for USDC, CCP, Chainlink CCP, Wormhole. So we will be able to offer cross-chain loans in the way that you can deposit, for example, an asset on Ethereum and borrow another asset on Arbitrum without dealing with gas and bridge fees. So this is one of an important step to improve the user experience for users. The other benefit is that, as I mentioned before, it will work as a concentrated liquidity hub because all the liquidity will be concentrated in the hub chain so that the users can borrow the funds from the hub pool. And we did a research on the current multi-chain environment. And we saw, for example, the biggest protocol in multi-chain is Aave. And we saw that counting all the liquidity in the Aave multi-chain system, we can see that Aave count 150 million as USDC liquidity. On Fox Finance, using the concentrated liquidity hub, you will be able to borrow up 80% of this liquidity. Instead of Aave, you have to take the chain with the most liquidity and borrow your funds in that chain. In that case, it's Arbitrum, so you can borrow up to 40 million or 50 million, whatever. So in this way, we can offer like a greater borrowing power to users. And also, the other problem is that the tool fragmentation, because if I want to move my collateral from, for example, Ethereum to Arbitrum, I have to perform another operation, which is the bridge operation, which is pretty painful because the users needs to have knowledge and he needs to become familiar with another protocol. So you expose the users to another issue, another problems. Using our cross-chain liquid staking, cross-chain lending protocol, and using our liquidity concentrated hub, you will be able to do every operation in a seamless way without dealing, as I said before, with gas bridge fee, because the messaging layer will handle all the operation for you. So this is one of the important steps. And I'm seeing that there are builders that are trying to improve this, like where are we doing it? We recently launched our cross-chain protocol just 2 days ago. So it's a great step for us. And we'll see how it will work. Obviously, there are like some implications, let's say some limits, which are like from a security perspective, because as a new technology, you have to be very careful. But we did several audits. We also ran like a bug bounty hackathon in collab with Immunify, involving all the hackers from around the world. So we are pretty bullish in builders that will try to solve the problem of the fragmentation of the liquidity and the tool fragmentation in the current space.
I think that the multi-chain, cross-chain kind of liquidity fragmentation is like much wider aspect, and I think like what you guys doing at Folks is like really good step that you can you can lend on ETH and you can borrow on another chain, but you still isolate it into like your own liquidity pools. Like it doesn't involve other liquidity pools like Aave, like Compound.
Not really. I mean, with the concentrated liquidity hub, for example, we are pushing more into USDC, because every time there is, for example, a deposit of USDC in our protocol, using CCTP, we'll be able to move freely the USDC in the chains. So every time there's a deposit, this USDC will be deposited in the app chain, in the case is Avalanche. And this means that there will be a unique pool. So all the liquidity among the chain will be concentrated into a unique pool.
But that's still just within Fox Finance, right?
Fox Finance.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, that we still have got like, multiple lending protocols, multiple DEXs, etc. And the liquidity is not only spread across chain, but it's also spread across applications. And like, you have got instances of Aave on, 10 or 8 different networks, same with Compound, same with Morpho, and every like Spark is now expanding to other networks. And I think it's not just that we have got the multi-chain fragmentation, but we also have got the application, like between application fragmentation. So I think there is a more high-level issue here with the kind of abstraction, like that users could do. You could have just one application and then be able to do stuff cross-chain, or I think this is still the thing that we need to figure out, because like if we want to onboard non-crypto users, like if you tell them, okay, you can lend with Aave, Morpho, Folks, whatever, like they're gonna have no clue what this is, and I think we're like facing much larger UX kind of chain abstraction challenge here than just like simple liquidity fragmentation.
Yes, I totally agree, but we want to be the next DeFi of the next DeFi users. So before I mentioned the tools fragmentation problem, in fact we will have cross-chain swaps, cross-chain liquid staking, using obviously other protocol. For example, we will have a revenue sharing with Li.Fi, with Lido, with BankUI. So we will be able to offer several tools within one platform. So yes, I agree with you that there are many protocols, lending protocols, DEX, DEX router, and but we know the value that we are proposing to the users, and of course we are working to attract the users, and we want to attract also the user from other protocol, because we know that we are offering a better user experience for the operation that we are performing.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's still the front-end game. So I get your point, but obviously they're trying to control the front end, because the front end controls the user flow, and if you have user flow, you have power of the flows, as you see in traditional finance with Robinhood and Citadel, for example. Now, coming back to the initial question of cross-chain versus multi-chain, I always like this question, and it's a question that I actually ask in interviews when I'm interviewing people that want to onboard to Li.Fi, because it shows how much research and what opinions you have about the space. And to reference Vitalik has like this very, very popular Reddit post in which he talks about cross-chain versus multi-chain. And he's saying that we will never have a cross-chain environment, and we're actually heading to a multi-chain one. And that comes back down to security. Because in case of an attack of 51% on Ethereum, if you have 100 ETH in your wallet or 1 ETH, the attacker cannot spend that ETH unless you're doing a swap, a transfer, cross-chain, or even same chain. So when it comes to security, you want a multi-chain environment in which each environment is like their own country. So if you want to go from country A to country B, you still have to use some sort of messaging protocol or aggregator like Li.Fi. I think it's a bit too idealistic to think that we're heading through to a cross-chain unified liquidity in which the user will not care on what chain they are, on what dApp they interact with. That just seems like like too cyberpunk, like 2010, in which we actually wanted to go there, but it's just not possible with how many roll-up solutions there are. And even if they're settling to Ethereum, they still want to control their own flows and their own front end. So it's for the greater good, but they still want to have the users. So for us at Li.Fi, that goes pretty well into our strengths, because we can aggregate new chains, even though it's pretty hard to keep up the pace with the hundreds of chains or layer 3s that are launching, because everything is kind of becoming a dApp chain nowadays. So you kind of have to pick winners and see who will have the most user adoption. So I think that we're going from like very niche systems to broader systems. So niche systems were like 5 years ago you had Ethereum, then a few years later you had Solana, then Optimism and Arbitrum, which are still enriching the Ethereum ecosystem, but still liquidity is getting more and more fragmented. And thus, you have solutions for that, like bridges, cross-chain bridges, like liquidity bridges, or message passing bridges. Now, for us, we realize that at the end of the day, users are here in crypto to move liquidity from one chain to the other. Cross-chain messages are interesting, and you can build a lot of cool stuff, like what the guys from Folks Finance are doing. However, it's a bit too early, and it goes into the cross-chain vision, which I'm not sure it will, make sense in, 2 to 3 years when everything is gonna be about the dApp chain game. However, if you can control, the dApp chain game and your own users through, funneling them to your own dApp, then, you're winning basically.
I'd like to ask specifically about your cross-chain swap. So I'm actually a very long-time user, appreciated it for a long time. The thing that today I believe as the highest friction for this type of tools are all the transactions that need to be signed and the waiting time between one swap and the other. What can I ask you what your protocol had to go through in the research of the most seamless approach, and what are today's actual chain limitations that we cannot abstract away, and what's the direction in the future to reduce this number of hoops necessary?
Yeah, I mean, for us at Li.Fi and for Jumper.exchange, which is our front-end interface, we have one-click swap and one-click bridge. So we're bundling swap, bridge, swap into one click, which a lot of research went into that, and it's only possible with certain bridges which support destination calls. So for us, it goes a lot into the research phase of what new technologies and what the bridges are doing, because, for example, a Cross, which runs their own solver network, can have a cross-chain bridge in less than a minute. There are other bridges which take more, which use liquidity pools. Now, obviously we have our opinions, and we actually wrote a very big piece about the cross-chain risk framework, in which we tried to analyze different bridges and in which risk framework they fall into. There is no, the safest bridge or like the most reliable bridge. Everything is on a spectrum. So there are bridges that are safer than the other. There are bridges that are faster than the other, that are more gas intensive than the other. So for now, you're basically at the mercy of the bridges and the new technologies coming up. However, I think that people realize more and more that decentralization comes maybe at the second place, because users appreciate much more a good experience. So faster transactions, not necessarily safer. Like we could argue, if a centralized solver it's safer or not, because it's basically a one party that's controlling and taking inventory risk. You could argue that maybe it is safer, or that is not. It's not that trustless, and it's not on chain. But yeah, I mean, I think we're heading into the right direction. Probably the cyberpunks will, not agree with me on where the industry is going, especially to swaps and to the bridging side.
For the cross-chain swaps, so you did mention bridging a lot. So there's this interesting concept. I don't know if you heard about Everclear. They wrote like white paper or did an announcement very recently that they want to build like this layer of netting balances between different networks, because usually like funds that move to one chain, like 80% goes back to that chain within like 24 hours time span. So what they actually want to do is they want to build this layer that's not going to be moving funds between different networks, but it's just going to be netting the balances between those networks and just settle them once a day. So if there's 100 ETH moved from ETH to Arbitrum, but then there's 80 ETH moved from Arbitrum to ETH mainnet, then they're just going to move the 20 ETH difference, and they're just going to net everything out as a balance. So there's like less cost, less time, and much less on-chain movements required for this. But obviously, you also mentioned Across and the centralized solvers network, and I think that's much more efficient than having using bridges for every movement of the asset, because solvers do have liquidity sources across different networks, across different liquidity pools, decentralized, off-chain, private market makers, etc. So if you can have a professional counterparty that is going to handle your intent, so you have got ETH here, you want USDC over another network, why move it through a bridge? Why move it through an exchange if you can have send an intent, and then this solver is just going to take one token from one network and just give you another token on another network, and it doesn't require them necessarily moving the assets. They're just going to take it and put it into one liquidity source and then pull it from another liquidity source on another chain and just give it to you. So that's much more efficient, and I think that's why intents are kind of the way forward, where user is not going to have to sign. you say like it's one click and it's a great experience for now. But I think like Intents, it's like even taking it one step further, and the user just says, okay, I have this, I want that, and then they don't care how it happens. They don't have to sign transaction. There's no gas included that they have to have in their wallet. Just sign the intent, and then it gets executed by those professional parties. And I think like in terms of at least swaps and like moving assets, that's the way forward. But then also it can enhance and improve the way people also enter different positions, because like, you know, if you want to enter a position at Aave, you know, on USDC, you just need to swap USDC for a USDC basically, and like you don't have to deposit, claim, authorize the transaction, the token, etc. And it just offers much better user experience, which you mentioned, and I think this is the thing that we've been kind of missing out so far in the DeFi. Like we've been so focused to have decentralized protocols, you know, super great technology, etc. But like forgetting that the users are at the forefront of all of this.
So you actually mentioned Intents, which is one of these names that we hear very often. But I'll be curious. How many people in this room know what Intent means? Raise of hands. So we're still very early, I think, in making this a reality, and so especially simplifying the understanding. From time to time, I have conversations with infrastructure protocols that tell me we're building the next Intent something, and then it often feels white papers and not actual products that are used by users. And another word that you mentioned were solvers, which I'm sure even less hands probably know what solvers are. Could you try to make it more simple, explaining what Intents means for an end user and what solvers achieve in this picture?
Of course, yeah. So Intents versus traditional transactions is like, so if you want to move an asset from one chain to another, or if you want to make a swap, you have to pick a protocol, or you have to pick a front end where you want to do it, and then you have to sign transaction, pay the gas, and like if you're not using a cross-chain swap protocol like Li.Fi, but you want to go through swap and bridge to another network, you have to do 2 transactions, pay gas twice, and like wait for the transactions, etc. With Intents, you can specify what you want to do. So let's say you want to swap ETH on mainnet to USDC on Optimism, and you don't sign a transaction. You sign an off-chain message saying, okay, this is what I want to do. And then this off-chain message is being sent to the network of solvers. So solvers are those professional parties that have got integrated a lot of liquidity sources, DEXs, bridges, private market makers, centralized liquidity sources as well. And basically they receive this message saying, hey, this user has got ETH on mainnet, wants to receive USDC on Optimism. This is like the minimum price he wants to get. And then the solvers compete to fill that intent. So sometimes, I mean, it's not even sometimes, it's usually that actually the user is going to get a better quote. So if you say that you want to sell ETH for 2,500 and solver can give you 2,550, it's very likely that they're going to give you that. They cover the gas costs, so user doesn't have to pay the gas. So the gas is kind of included in the quote that they're going to receive. So it just improves the UX much better because user doesn't have to have gas in their wallet on different networks, and they just say, okay, I want to do this, and then a professional party takes that, fills that order, and gives you the end token on whatever chain you want. And it's not like even white paper kind of thing, because CowSwap is running on Intents for months now. They have got, I don't know, 10 different solvers integrated, and I think they're like now number 2 or number 3 in terms of volumes on DEXs in Ethereum. So they have got like a lot of traction because they're basically, they can prevent users from MEV extraction, and they offer like the best quotes for the trades. So I think like, this is our also view at Mimic, is that, Intents is the way of how you're going to be, moving assets on chain, because it's just much more efficient from the user perspective.
I mean, Just to chime into the solver definition, this industry has a special talent of reinventing the wheel and coining new terms for stuff that existed for like 30, 40 years in TradFi. And we've done this with, from message passing bridges with, like, I'm not picking on anyone, but they all use, same definitions with different terms. Now, solvers or, intents, an intent is basically you saying that I want a, pineapple pizza, I'm picking up on all the Italians now. I want a pineapple pizza at 7 o'clock at my door, and that's an intent. You have the intent and you're gonna receive the pizza.
Italian solvers might refuse to execute it,
the
however.
thing is, usually you would call a specific pizza shop, and with the intent you just say, I want whatever, like the cheapest pizza in the whole Milan, and it goes to all the pizza shops, and then one brings you one.
Yeah, exactly. So you can be very specific. And now going to the delivery guys, which are the solvers. Solvers can. I like to categorize solvers into different stages. So the first one is same chain solvers, which Li.Fi is running a solver network as well, which basically means that we're aggregating the same solvers that CowSwap is doing, or that 1inch Fusion or Uniswap X. Now, same chain solvers are still routing algorithms like 1inch or like Li.Fi, but the difference is that they are very math intensive. So for example, if you're gonna swap 1 ETH or 1 ETH to USDC, they might do that trade in 100 small trades. Whereas with Uniswap, it's probably gonna go, through a liquidity pool in one swap. So you have this and you're getting that. Now solvers will do this, in 100 trades. Now cross-chain solvers, which are a bit more, I wouldn't say sophisticated, they take more risk basically. So they take the inventory risk in which you have, 1 ETH here and you want to get 1 ETH on the other chain. They already have 1 ETH there. So they have their own means, either through bridges or through centralized parties, or maybe just rebalancing in their own books, in which they take the ETH here and they release it there after the transaction is confirmed. So, multiple types of solvers, but intents at the end of the day, it's a request for a quote. So you have a desire and, someone, which is the delivery guy, aka the solver, will solve it for you.
I have a quick question for Lukasz. What is the main con in using intents and obviously in solvers? Like you have to trust the solver. I mean, what if they are malicious actor?
Of course, you have to trust the solvers, but that's, everywhere you have got some sort of a risk. But for example, an example of CowSwap, they have got, 5, 10, I don't know how many solvers they have got, and there is like this slashing mechanism, so they ask maliciously. They need to stake Cow token in order to participate in solving the network, and if they act maliciously, their stake is getting slashed. So there are some mechanisms over there, and it's not like, it could be decentralized because, in the future you're going to have 100 different solvers who are going to be participating in this market, and it's in their best interest to be acting, to not be acting maliciously in order to not get their stake slashed, and also like that's how they make money, because like from every trade they do extract some positive slippage that is their revenue.
Thank you.
Filippo, do you think that today's multi-chain landscape with all the multiple chains are actually bringing a positive reception from the end users, or do you think that native protocols on a native chain where it's their home actually have a reason still to exist? Is the future fully multi-chain? How many chains are too much? And what happens when a protocol is native and maybe starts to broaden out?
As I said before, I'm bullish for cross-chain native protocol. I think that the current multi-chain landscape is a totally mess because obviously, as we see nowadays, there are many chains people are trying to farm points, airdrop, and basically they are not onboarding new users. The funds just move from a chain to another one, and so this is not healthy for the ecosystem. So we need like a protocols that works like an hub for the users, so that they can perform the operation they prefer within the same platform. For example, I take the main pro of centralized exchange. So, okay, we can leave apart the security thing, the regulatory compliance thing, but they are great in the terms that they can be considered as cross-chain platform, because you can send the asset you want in the chain you want without caring of the technology that it's behind it, and you don't have to deal with gas and bridge fees. They also can be considered as only one platform, because you can perform several operations within the same platform. You can stake, you can participate in pre-sale, you can do trading, leverage trading, liquid staking, so you can do a lot of things. So I think that the next future of DeFi application and those that will win these, let's say, battles, is those that will take the benefit from both CeFi and DeFi space. So they take the cross-chain platform support and the all-in-one platform, and in a decentralized way, since the decentralized space is trustless and permissionless. So it's what we are doing with Fox Finance. So we will be able to offer a centralized experience, but using smart contracts, so in a decentralized way. So I think that, yeah, I mean, the multi-chain protocol probably will work in unifying the liquidity, because it's simply something that is not working, and will add to fragmentation of the liquidity tools, and will add also users to lose funds, because I mean, I can imagine that all of you have like funds in every chain, in every wallet, and this is pretty annoying for new users and the current users.
Yeah, the technology for multi-chain liquidity, it's, I think, still far, unfortunately, from being deployed by protocols, because the complexity of multi-chain interoperability, especially because we don't live exclusively in a Ethereum EVM-based environment of layer 2s, but now we have a whole different degree of fragmentations across different tech stacks, different chains, and layer 1s that are becoming way, way more popular over time. So it is a very complex operation that, if applied, will probably need to put the security risk in a new place that is today avoided, because the chains keep the liquidity on the individual chains segregated. Regarding the way users lend or swap tokens today in a multi-chain environment, do you see a very quick innovation that is going to be approached within the next 12 months, maybe, that you can see we will be able to grasp?
Innovation, no, but I'm seeing that like a lot of users are using, like I'm bullish on the aggregator. So DEX aggregator, for example, is just a quick example that we need to propose the user that there are solutions compared to the current protocols, so that there are solutions that aggregate the operation in one click. So we have automation protocols, we have DEX aggregator. So I don't see any innovation in the futures in the multi-chain space, because every builders will try to solve the problem of having like a multi-chain protocol. So they want to be like the next DeFi app, but using a unified liquidity, because they are seeing that there's a problem of being multi-chain that fragment a lot of things.
I think it's not the liquidity aspect that we need to solve, it's more the user experience. And I think like at the end of the day, the user shouldn't care if they're like borrowing on, you know, LFG on Avalanche or Arbitrum or Volksfinance on Optimism or Aave Ethereum. Like for them, you know, and I think there's I can't remember the name. I think it's called Orbs. It's like infra on top of the wallet where it abstracts everything. So you have got like one balance, and you know you just pick where you want to deposit your funds or who do you want to interact, and they abstract all the bridging, all the swaps of the tokens, etc. on your behalf. And I think this is the kind of the way going forward, because if I'm a new user to DeFi and I want to earn some yield, I should just see like different opportunities saying, okay, there is, you know, 6% on LFG or there's 7% on Volksfinance, but you know, if you dive deeper, there's 7% on Arbitrum, but there's 6.7 on Optimism, etc. I should just say, okay, I want this 7%, deposit, and then everything else is abstracted like bridging, depositing, etc. And then we can have the liquidity fragmentation. At least I think for lending, it doesn't matter as much as for like swaps. But yeah, then the user is just like, doesn't have to pick the network, doesn't have to pick the protocol specifically, because like, you know, this is the kind of Web3 way of thinking that we're just like super like picky. Okay, I don't want this protocol, I want that. I don't want this network, I want this one. In Web2, people like don't care that much about this, and like if we're thinking about onboarding new wave of users, we should definitely resolve this to ensure that, you know, for them it's just easy to interact with the applications and not to, you know, do research and think like, okay, whether I should do on this network, like what's the difference between Arbitrum and Optimism? Like for a non-crypto user, it makes no sense. So I think like there needs to be happening more on the user experience kind of wallet, and with smart accounts, there is a lot of, he asked about the innovation. I think, you know, there is still a lot of space on the smart account where you can do a lot of abstraction, have paymasters, you know, do gasless transactions, stuff like this. That will a little bit like, you know, evade the multi-chain liquidity problem and the fragmentation.
I think the liquidity fragmentation problem is part of the user experience of the users. Because, I mean, before I mentioned the Aave example, the multi-chain example, but why I cannot, let's say, using a more concentrated liquidity power, let's say, because, as I said before, Aave, like every multi-chain lending protocol, multi-chain protocol, have like are inefficient on this. Like why I should be limited in borrowing the funds, why I should use less funds in my operation. So using the cross-chain technology and our concentrated liquidity hub, we'll be able to offer more liquidity, which will lead to like a better user experience in the loan management, in the lending experience. So this is, for me, also part of the user experience from a user perspective. And I also want to mention another thing, is that probably is an underrated topic, but we will see in the future many more cross-chain native token. Just few protocols already adopted, like Lido, Ethena, and other few protocol. So basically, it will work in the way that every time you initiate a transaction, the asset is burned on the search chain, and then it's minted again in the destination chain. This will avoid any slippage fees, liquidity pools, and we also enable other use cases. For example, like cross-chain governance. Historically, every operation are executed in one chain. In this case, user can execute the DAO, the governance operation in the chain they prefers, in where they are holding the token. So this is one of the use cases that come in my mind at the moment. They can also enable like a wider cross-chain composability, because this cross-chain native token maintain the properties in every chain they are deployed. So, I mean, this is what we will see in the future. We are pretty early, but even Fox Finance will adopt the vision of the cross-chain native token. And this cross-chain native token will also benefit the lending market, because you can use the same architecture of Circle CCTP, so you will be able to concentrate all the liquidity in one place.
I'd like to talk, since we have our last 10 minutes to talk about decentralized finance, to focus specifically on decentralized finance. I've heard a lot the word abstraction, and often abstracting means having to trust someone, a protocol, with what they're going to do, which technically it's a step back for decentralization. And often what we have heard with, for example, agents are words like off-chain. So we are removing decentralization on that aspect too, if we want to be purists. So I'd like to hear the opinion of you all on, do you think that decentralized finance is heading towards a reduction of the decentralized ethos towards simplifying the user experience for the users that we want to embark? Or are we still going to be able to keep things purely decentralized while making the UX UI much better?
I think we need to find some balance here. I don't think we're going to be going towards like full decentralization. It's because if we do, we're always going to stay the same circle of people that are meeting at different events every year, and it's not going to be growing exponentially. If we want to, adopt the masses, if we want to have crypto DeFi to be this, more adopted things, we have to take some compromise. But I think we will take compromise at various levels of it. So I think at the protocol level, when you have got Aave, Uniswap liquidity pools, etc. I think this is still going to be stay pretty decentralized, and it's going to be DAO governed, etc. And where you deposit your funds, the smart contract in which your funds are stored or operated, it's still going to be very decentralized way. But then the layer on top of it, so the abstraction, the kind of way to improve the UX, we have to trust some counterparties. And I know there is this cypherpunk ethos in crypto, and that's how it kind of spun up. But we have been trusting different entities for many, many years in finance. We still do. I bet 90% of people here have got traditional bank accounts or any Revolut apps or anything like this, and we're trusting the centralized entities who are managing our funds, and they're managing them completely. If they go bust, you might get some guarantees, etc. But anyway, I think at some parts, trusting centralized entities to some extent is not a bad thing, and if we want to push the industry forward, we have to compromise a little bit, but only to some extent.
So the playing field is always going to be decentralized. Now the tools, they're going to be more and more centralized. We talked, for half an hour about solvers and bridging. We're kind of seeing, the whole industry going and adopting more centralized solutions because they're just better for the end user. So with that being said, you will always have, fragmentation of liquidity. You will always have problems in DeFi, but there are solutions that will facilitate a seamless experience, even if you want to do lending or borrowing, even if you want to swap same chain, even if you want to, do a cross-chain swap. And we're seeing that the trend right now is to, trust centralized parties?
Yeah, I think that, as Lukasz said, we should find a balance. So we will always use, we will always see centralized services in decentralized application. But it's fair. I mean, it's fine if improve the user experience. For example, if I want to onboard new users, then and they don't have any kind of funds in their wallet or whatever, they must use on-ramp, off-ramp solutions. They maybe need to pass through exchanges, which is fine. But yes, we should find like a balance, because it's hard to reach a fully decentralization. So it can take also years to reach it. I prefer maybe protocols that say, okay, we are trying to reach the decentralization, but we are not decentralized, because what I'm seeing is that many protocols declare themselves like a decentralized protocol, but actually they are not decentralized protocols. I prefer those that are saying, hey guys, in maybe 2-3 years we will reach the fully decentralization, but currently we are using centralized services, we rely on centralized tools. So we should find like a balance to improve the user experience.
Even if you look at the DeFi front ends, like you have got Uniswap, that's decentralized protocol, DAO governed, etc. But the Uniswap front end is governed by Uniswap Labs, that's centralized company registered in the US, etc. So obviously you can interact with Uniswap, on the smart contract level, and you can kind of go and avoid the centralized front end. But like if you want to interact with it like we did in 2020 when Uniswap was launched, you were trusting a centralized entity that is controlling that front end, that it's going to do what's purpose. So it's always been like we've hardly been like fully decentralized in that sense in how we operate. But yes, I think at the protocol level we should kind of go towards that full decentralization part. And I think with the front ends, I don't know, is there any like fully decentralized front end in DeFi?
Bitcoin. That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like we are heading towards a direction that prefers users over decentralization, but I am sure that behind these dreams there's always layers of protocols nowadays. When you interact with one protocol that it's basically a front end, below that protocol, underneath, there are so many interaction with purely decentralized protocols that work extremely hard to guarantee the maximum safest security and immutability of their contracts and the conditions, and then by users have the freedom to either go directly with these protocols and interact with the protocols at the most basic level and not exposing themselves to any other actor, or going up the ladder of simplification and UX UI improvements and making things easier and better for them. I believe that also on the wallet side, there is a lot of innovation that is necessary for users to understand the type of interactions that they are participating with, as signing a transaction is often the most trusted option today that we need to accept, and having a full legible read of what you are interacting with and the potential outcomes of the transaction is extremely important for the education of the users that interact with blockchain-based products. Do you have any one last remark of where you see the industry going forward?
No, I like what you mentioned also about the wallets, because I think they play they play a big role in our industry, and I'm seeing that wallets are working in unifying the user experience. Like the wallet that I use the most is, for example, Rabbi. I think is the best one in the environment, because they are trying to aggregate all the user experience from different wallets in one place. They also help you, for example, when you sign a transaction, they simulate the transaction in advance for you to see if there's a malicious path. So since the wallets are the main actors in onboarding the users, I think that we are in the right way. So let's use the wallets that offer you this experience and avoid the rest.
I mean, wallets control, the front-end game because they have the users and they, obviously can afford to charge very, very high fees for a swap or a bridge that would be, free of charge, for example, on Jumper. However, the users feel safer because they're, in an environment that they already know, for example, like Rabbi or MetaMask. But at the end of the day, it is about having a good user experience for the user. We've talked some very complex topics here, but it comes down to the user and making it feel as comfortable as possible in a decentralized finance environment.
Yeah, I kind of agree with the guys. Wallets, and I think like in general, applications is what we're missing. We've reached a really good level of DeFi infrastructure at the protocol level. There is aggregators, cross-chain swaps, etc. There's a lot of infra there that can be used to interact with DeFi in a really good manner, but we're still missing out like that front-end UX part. So yeah, good applications, better wallets. I hope that the smart accounts are going to be the way that we're eventually going to be mainly interacting with DeFi. Yeah, that's probably it.
Filippo, Andrei, and Lukasz, thank you very much for participating to today's panel. It was a pleasure having you as guest.
Thanks a lot.